All right, hello people. I'm very happy to see you in person. I've been giving presentations to my computer screen for the past 2 years, and it's really hard because you don't get any kind of interaction whatsoever. So anyway, I'm Marcelle, and I'm here to talk to you about one of my favorite tools, CyberChef. This is Let's Get Cooking with CyberChef, so hopefully you're in the right room. So a little bit about me. I am pretty much at Marcelle Lee on all the socials, if you want to find me. I also have my contact information at the end. I just changed jobs 3 weeks ago, so I'm still drinking from the fire hose at a company called Equinix, which is a really big global data center company. So it's kind of a different environment for me. I'm used to working for MSSPs, but I'm still doing threat intel, which is my favorite thing pretty much in the world. I'm also an adjunct professor at UMD and UMGC. If you take any classes at UMGC in the cyber area, you might come across me at some point in time. All virtual, of course. And then I'm also on the board of directors for a number of different organizations, but the one that I wanted to mention specifically is Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, which is not just for women, despite what the name implies. And I'm going to do a shameless plug for, and I'm going to grab some water too, for an event that we have coming up in June 18th. It's Cyberjutsu Con. It's going to be at the Maritime Conference Center, which is out by BWI Airport. It's actually a really cool facility that I had never heard of before. So it's going to be a great day. I highly recommend you register, volunteer if you want to, sponsor if you want to, all the things. Okay, so a little bit about, just what is a cybersecurity researcher? It can mean a lot of different things. This is sort of my joking interpretation of what it is, the collector of shiny cyber things. That's what I say that I do all the time, right? Identifier of cyber badness, Googler extraordinaire. That is the key tool that we all use, right? And an expert copy paster, because that's also something that we do lots of. But what is it really? So it's a lot of different things, and these are just kind of a brain dump for me of things that I do regularly in my day-to-day job, right? So who here does security research, as their job? A few people? Yeah. Anybody want to do it that doesn't do it right now? Yeah, a few people. I do have a talk floating around out there. I think I have it on my GitHub. That's called A Day in the Life of a Security Researcher that kind of does a deep dive on this topic as opposed to one slide. So anyway, but this is what I think it is, right? So you're obtaining and digesting threat intel data from a variety of sources. And that could be, OSINT, HUMINT, obviously telemetry from within your own company, government sources, the list goes on and on. Doing Google dorking, of course, is a good thing. I definitely learned some things from Nick. And then analyzing the data that you're finding and identifying trends, patterns, campaigns is a big thing. So say, you come across a phishing email and then you dig into it, maybe using some of the techniques that Nick mentioned, like looking at Exif data, metadata, whatever. And just pulling the threads to figure out, what is this phishing email representative of? Is it a larger campaign? Did it come from, a quackbot thing or, whatever? So having, a natural curiosity, I think, really helps with this kind of thing because you do end up in a lot of rabbit holes, which I got a tattoo that says, down the rabbit hole, because that's basically where I spend much of my life. Anyway, so, and then applying frameworks. MITRE ATT&CK is obviously a very common one that most people are familiar with. I use that one a lot. Extracting indicators. So what do I mean by indicators? Hashes, IPs, domains, so on and so forth. And just really gathering knowledge or creating knowledge about these different threats. And creating countermeasures might be a part of your job. That's definitely something that I did with my previous employer, which was SecureWorks. And we would work with the countermeasure team to essentially say we identified some new malware or something, how can we work with them to make sure that we've got signatures in place that are going to detect that activity. Accessing exposure to your corporation and And then last but not least, everybody's favorite, reporting the findings. But none of this is any good if you're not reporting it. So that's a big piece. And I want to acknowledge, I did a CyberChef training from Matt Weiner, I'm not sure how to say it. And I think that Chris Sanders possibly actually built the course, but it's really, really good. If you go to Applied Network Defense, you could also take this same course. And you might even finish it, which I haven't. I had work pay for the original, like, 6-month period or whatever, and I've been paying $20 a month for I have no idea how long, and I still haven't finished it. But anyway, so that's a really good class. So let's get into what is CyberChef. So first of all, who here has used CyberChef before? Oh, good, lots of you. Wait, so why am I up here telling you about it? You all know how to do this already. Anyway, CyberChef comes from GCHQ, which is basically the British equivalent of NSA. That building there is referred to as the Donut, and that's their headquarters, wherever in England. And so there's really, I mean, it's one GitHub project, but they have 2 different links there. So their GitHub project and then the actual direct link to the tool. So you can run CyberChef either locally or through the website. And either way, the operations are performed client-side, so what you put in shouldn't be visible at the server side. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the layout. CyberChef, as the name implies, is all about like recipes and cooking and things like that. In fact, yesterday I was having lunch at like Bonefish Grill in someplace, but the waiter was looking at me working on my presentation, and he's like, "Oh, are you a chef?" And I was like, "No." And then I'm like, "But let me show you this really cool tool." And he was just probably thought I was crazy. Anyway, so you have your operations section, which is that left-hand pane there, and there are, as I'll show you, many, many, many different operations that you can use. Then the middle pane is the recipe. And a recipe is just basically some kind of combination of operations. Then the input-output pane, the baking piece of it. And then the operations are just all the things that CyberChef can do for you. You can also favorite operations. So this is something I recommend doing. It's not wildly intuitive how to do it, but if you click on the star next to favorites, here, I'll just pull it up right now. Where did I put my glasses? There they are. So I got LASIK during the pandemic because I really couldn't stand having a foggy glasses from the mask all the time. But now I have to wear glasses for close up. And this is the first time I've done a talk where I have actually have to see people out there and see this. So I guess I don't have to see you all, but I want to see you. Okay, let's make this a little bigger. Let's make it even bigger. How's that? Is that all right? Okay. So the favorites, if you click on the star right here, and you can edit favorites, and this is how you would, add, delete, or whatever. Well, delete, reorder, and then if you wanted to add favorites, you would just do that from the actual operation. You have an option there. Okay, so that's that. And the recipe part. So what you see on the screen here is a combination of 4 different recipes, right? So from base 64 to binary, reverse, raw deflate, and that's giving you some crazy output, right? But it's just an example of how you can stack these operations. And so the layout, in that recipe pane, you have options to save the recipe, load the recipe, or just delete, not really delete the recipe, but you're deleting what's on the screen there. You can also delete what's on the screen in the recipe section just by double-clicking the recipe. And then the input pane has a new tab, and I can't even tell you how long I used CyberChef before I realized you could have multiple tabs open in there. So just all the things you learn. Open a folder, open a file, these are as input, of course, reset the input screen, and reset the layout. And then on the output side, you can save, copy, move to the input pane. So basically what's on the output moves up to the input, which is useful sometimes. And then also you can maximize that output pane if you're trying to get, a bigger look at it. And then CyberChef has something that's called magic. And basically it's a little like, I don't know, what is that, a magic wand, I guess? A little magic wand that lets you it lets CyberChef take a crack at whatever it is you maybe are trying to do, right? So let's do a for example on that one. Whoops. Okay, so I have an example over here. So I'm going to copy this hash and throw it in the input. And I'm running CyberChef locally here. As you can see, this is like a version number. If this wasn't local, it would just basically say download CyberChef here where the version number is. But I like to run it locally. It stores all your recipes in the CyberChef folder, which is kind of handy because they're there then forever, pretty much. So, and it's not going to give me the magic. Hold on. Let's do that. Output is stale. There we go. So it's giving me a little magic thing, and if I hover over it, whatever, I can't say it, it's telling me from hex will produce BSidesCharm. It's like a hint. And I'm like, oh, okay, so let me go over here and do from hex, and lo and behold, it says BSidesCharm. This does not always work, and the next example I'm going to show you, you'll see where it doesn't work. Okay. Actually, before I dive into, well, no, let's go ahead and do the next example. So we're going to start cooking. And this is where we're going to use CyberChef to analyze a hash. So you know how sometimes you'll get like a list of hashes and you're like, I don't know if this is MD5 or SHA or whatever, if they're not identified. If it's long, I'm like, oh, it's probably SHA-256, but it could be SHA-1. I can't remember exactly what they look like. So you can use it for that. So let's try this. I'm going to take this hash. Anybody want to take a guess at what hash that is? What algorithm? Hold on, let me put it in here so you can actually see it. What? SHA-256? I think that seems reasonable. It looks pretty long, right? So let me actually clear this first and then put this in. Okay, well, from hex is clearly not the operation that we want to use, so let's get rid of that. So let's see what CyberChef tells us for the magic on this one. And it says, from hex will produce something that I cannot possibly say. So sometimes that magic thing is not right? It's thinking it's hex, but it's, and I guess technically it is hex, but not hex encoding. So instead we want to do an operation which is, I think it's analyze hash, yes. Oh, and because it is a British tool, the words are British, so that might be confusing for some people. I'm like, why do they spell analyze like that? Anyway, but that's why. So yes, so we see here that the answer is indeed, it's a SHA-256. There are other possibilities too, but I think generally speaking, we would go with SHA-256 and not Panama, whatever. So anyway, I've never even heard of a Panama hash. So let's get back into this. So I want to just kind of skim through some of these and just give you a taste of just the breadth and depth of things that you can do in here. So data formatting. This is like the hex stuff that we've already talked about. You could do decimal conversions, binary, octal, all the bases that you can think of, so on and so forth, all kinds of things. So I don't even know what some of these things are, and I haven't had a chance to try every single thing. It's kind of like Kali Linux, right? Kali has 1 million tools in it, and I personally have not tried all of them. Has anybody here tried all the tools in Kali Linux? No, it's impossible, I think. Same thing with CyberChef. So, and you kind of have to have like a use case to do these things. Oh, one thing I want to mention too about CyberChef is it's awesome for cyber competitions. Does anybody here do cyber competitions? Really? Just a few people? If you're not doing them, you should be doing them. They're so much fun. But anyway, it's a super useful tool for cyber competitions. You can solve all kinds of challenges using CyberChef. So it's like one-stop shop. Okay, so lots and lots of different kinds of data formatting things there. And then encryption and encoding, like you can encode, decode, encrypt, decrypt, all these different things, right? So RC4, for example, that's one that we see a lot, like in malware activity. So this is pretty useful. You can throw it in, combine it with other operations. XOR is also something that we see a lot of in malware operations. So that's another good one. But yeah, just, you know, if you need a fiend cipher, you could get that here. I don't know why you would need it, except for a cyber competition. But anyway, you get the idea. I'm not going to show you every single one, but it's very, very extensive. Public key, same kind of idea. You can also do key verification in here, which I actually just did that recently, and it worked pretty handily. So, okay, arithmetic and logic. So this is useful too. The XORing we already talked about, but the ANDing and ORing and NOTing and all that kind of stuff you can do in here. You could just do straight up math too, but I don't think I would open CyberChef just to do like a multiplication thing, because Google will do that for me. I just have to say like 4 times 20. This one I could actually do in my head, but oh look, it's 80, yay. So that's probably faster than launching CyberChef. But you get the idea. And what else? Networking. So if you are aware of me at all, you will know that my very favorite tool in the world is Wireshark, and I love network forensics. It's like my favorite thing. So ask me questions about packets anytime. I love that. And I have managed to weave some Wireshark into this demonstration, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, so there's lots of things you can do in here networking-wise. You know, doing an HTTP request. Like, I want to check out some website maybe and not necessarily, you know, go to the website. I could do it here. Parsing all kinds of headers, URL encoding and decoding. That's something you'll see a lot of in network traffic. It's kind of nice to do a quick decode here if you need to. IP formats, grouping IP addresses. This is kind of cool. So if you have like a list of IP addresses and you want to know like which ones are in which subnet or whatever, you can do that too. So that's kind of fun. Well, it's fun for me. Defanging, you can defang URLs and IP addresses, which is super handy. I can't even tell you like how many times I've like copy pasta, of course, indicators from some document, then I put them into like Notepad and then do a find and replace to get rid of, you know, the periods or whatever. Super tedious. This is way faster. Okay, and some language things. This is actually the shortest section, I think. And then a zillion utilities. One of the ones I use a lot here is removing null bytes. So like if you're looking at, say you have like a PowerShell script that was like encoded or whatever, and when it gets decoded, it's got a bunch of little like dots and stuff in it, which is kind of distracting. Just do the remove null bytes and it takes care of that for you. You can do all kinds of case things. You can do all kinds of data manipulation, sorting, uniquing, heading and tailing, all that kind of stuff. So many, many things there. And then date and time. This is just another kind of useful thing. Actually good for CTS also. Like you get like a Unix timestamp and have to say like what the time is and just regular time. And then extractors. So this is really cool. Say you have a big blob of text or whatever and you want to pull out all the IP addresses, all the domains, whatever, it'll do that for you automatically. And file paths, so on and so forth. So I like that a lot too. All kinds of compression activities. I'll have an example of that. Then all the hashing things, so many hashes. And code tidy, which is pretty much what it sounds like, but if you have some ugly-looking code, it'll make it look nicer for you. It doesn't help like with the actual code if there's issues with it, but it will make it look good. And then forensics, which is one of my favorite things also. Some Exif operations here. So I was thinking of this when Nick was doing his talk too. So CyberChef, I'm going to have an example for you of looking at the Exif data in CyberChef. Multimedia, and I'm almost at the end of this too, because I don't want to like go on and on with this list. But so many things that you can do with multimedia, manipulating images, adding data to images, all kinds of things, flipping images. And then there's other, which I'm not really going to get into, but there's lots of stuff there. And then flow control, which the main thing here I think that I like is forking. But anyway, so that gives you like a general idea of just like how much stuff there is in CyberChef. It's lots, right? All right, so let's get back to this. So we did this. We determined it was a SHA-256. So the encoding and decoding, I kind of already showed you that one, but let's just get rid of this stuff, which I'll do by delete that. And let's say we want to do, I'll do BSidesCharm, because I'm super original like that, 2022. And we'll say we want to do, let's just do rot, because, you know, rot is so much fun. And there's a little button down here that you can see next to the bake, and it's auto bake. So typically, I will have auto bake turned on. You usually want to, just because then it'll do the things automatically without you having to click the bake button. The exception to that is if you're dealing with like a really big input, and you might want to like, you know, not do auto bake because it'll be kind of clunking things up. All right, so let's do some very unique ROT 13. And there's our output, right? So actually, it's interesting. It doesn't do the number. It just does the words. But that makes sense because it's alphabetical. Anyway, but I like this also for cyber competitions because sometimes the cyber competition people will try to trick you and do like ROT something else besides 13, right? So this is a good way to just easily like be like, oh, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And you kind of can figure it out. Okay, so that's that. Now, making HTTP requests. I did mention this earlier, but I'm going to give you an example. So we're going to load the HTTP request recipe. And so I'll delete that. And HTTP. I guess I could have favorited these. That would have made sense. And put that in here. And then I actually have a recipe. Well, am I going to use it? Yes, I will use a recipe for this one. Because I have a couple of other things we're going to do. But the URL I'm going to go to is ip-api.com, which is going to give me, what do you think? My IP address, exactly. So let's bake that. And we get down here basically the output from that. So it's telling me pretty specifically, I'm in Rockville, there's my zip code, it's got a lat long, all that good stuff, my provider, and of course my IP address. But let's load a recipe here. So if I click on load, it's going to pull up basically all my recipes, and in this case I want to do this one that I created called HTTP IP defang. And the way it works is it just shows you like what that recipe does. So basically it's just plugging it in. And then if you want to share recipes with people, you can do it like this, but you can also just share like that link that I will have after I run this operation or recipe. So let's load that up and let's bake it. Okay, so I have this output of the defanged URL. There really should be screens on both sides, I guess. Anyway, if you want to move, it's okay. So let me show you a cool thing here that you can do. So I have a HTTP request, I have extracting IP addresses, and then I have defanging IP addresses. So 3 different operations in this particular recipe. But I could set like a breakpoint at each one of these. So if I break it here, then that just shows me that the output of that first operation. I'll let that go again, and then I can break it here, and that's going to show me the IP address before I defanged it, right? So that's a really cool function too. And then if I wanted to like just not do one of those things, say, all right, I don't want to defang, then you click on that circle with a line through it, and that just basically pulls that one out of the operation. Okay, so let's do another example. So QR codes. So how do we see what's behind a QR code? Do we just scan it and go to the link that's there? Somebody please say no. No, we don't. And I think most of like photo apps and stuff are getting better about like at least showing you the domain before it just automatically takes you there. But you can also throw a QR code into CyberChef. So let's do that. So I'm going to use a recipe I created for this, which is, just delete that, load recipe, and it's going to be, where's my QR code one? Oh, it's right there at the top. Load. So you can see I've got parse URL code, defang URL, HTTP request to something, and that's about it. So let's use open file for our input. I'm going to load this QR code and say bake. And what we've got is output of said this could be malicious.xyz, records null. But let's do the breakpoints here too. So we parse the QR code. Oops, why is that not break? Oh. Why is it not doing that? Oh, auto bake, thank you. Okay, bake it again. All right, so we'll break this here. And so we can see this is the domain that's basically behind that QR code, which is one that I literally made up, of course. This could be malicious.xyz. And just fun fact, helpful hint, if it's .xyz, I guarantee you it's malicious. I've never seen a legit .xyz domain. Anyway, okay, so we could break it there. And then the HTTP request I did was just basically an API for doing DNS lookups, right, an NS lookup thing. So that gave me not great results because I made up the domain. And then, of course, the defanging piece at the end. So yeah, so it makes it really simple to like kind of do a lot of things in one like quick recipe. Okay, so let's do another one. How am I doing on time? Oh, I'm good. Okay, so I mentioned there would be Wireshark in this presentation. Just had to work it in somewhere. So this is like a totally nerdy thing that CyberChef does that I love because I am a packet nerd. But you can extract IP headers, and I haven't seen them do any other header extraction, but I feel like that's something that would be good. Also, I didn't mention, but CyberChef is it's a project that's in active development. Anybody can like contribute to it. You just like fork it and do your thing and whatnot. So so that's pretty cool. So you could build all kinds of functionality in it. Okay, so let's do this one. So what we're going to do is go over to Wireshark, and you don't really need to see that much what I'm doing, but essentially what I'm going to do here, I have just a random capture, and I'm going to select the IP section here, and I'm going to copy as a hex stream. So that's just copying, like, you know, all those bytes right there. And then let's pop that back in over here. Delete, paste, delete. And I don't need a recipe, like a whole full-blown, because it's just parse IPv4 header. And you get, like literally, let me pull this up a little bit, the different header fields and whatnot. So if you would imagine like a TCP or an IP header, these are this is what it looks like, right? So I told you it was going to be nerdy, but I love this kind of thing. And I want to build it for like TCP and UDP and all that, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So I don't know about you all during the pandemic, but I did a few things. My hair got way longer, so like if you saw me before, it was much shorter. I got LASIK, as I mentioned. I got like 5 new tattoos because my tattoo guy was still working. And anyway, and what else did I do? Oh yeah, I started gardening like crazy. We built an addition to our house. Our contractor built an addition to our house. And I got pandemic chickens. So I'm like more busy doing things like not hands-on keys these days, which is a good thing. I didn't do this stuff before, I think, because I was always traveling. And that came to a screeching halt, of course. So yeah, I think, that was like an upside of the pandemic for me, is just being able to not endlessly be on the computer. But anyway, I'm also supposed to be writing a book. I have a contract. I've written like 1.5 chapters in a year, so I don't know when I'm going to finish that. One day, maybe. It's about packet analysis. Okay, so let's see, where were we? Okay, so a block of IP addresses, and I feel like this one is going to resonate with a lot of people. So you have a report that somebody wrote, and it has a bunch of indicators on it, and you're like, I need these indicators. So there is still going to be some copy pasting involved with this, but it's definitely better than like how I ever did this before. So I have up here, where is it? This one. Hot off the press, FBI flash on Black Hat Alpha V ransomware. Just came out this week. Does anybody get these FBI alerts? Yeah, they're super useful. If you don't get them, there's a number of different places where you can sign up. I'm a big fan of the New Jersey Kick, of all things. Like, they have a really good service of sending out things like CISA reports and FBI reports and whatever. And they also have a really good repository of information about different threats. So highly recommend New Jersey Kick. And I'm pretty sure anybody can join. Well, I don't know, if you said like terrorist@iran.com, maybe they would not let you join, I'm not sure. But there probably is some level of vetting. Okay, so let's see. So, all the information, and then we get to the indicator section. And I want these IP addresses. So I'm going to, as we security researchers do, copy and paste. But instead of pasting it into like a notepad or whatever, I'm going to actually paste it into CyberChef. And so, look, I still have a jumbled up list of IP addresses. Not fabulous, right? That's hard for me to do anything with. So I'm going to run a recipe, which is IP block, and this is going to do a bunch of stuff for us. And it comes out with the number 13. We're like, what does that mean? So I'll go through the steps for you. But basically, so the first thing we're going to do is a split. So that's taking all that dump of information and basically inserting a new line character after each one. And you delineate what that is going to be that you're using, right? So it could be a number of different things. Then I'm going to sort it. So now it's sorted for us. And of course, it still does it like just normal sorting number-wise. So okay, now I've got a nice list. And okay, I want to defang them because perhaps they're all malicious and I don't want to send somebody just, malicious links that aren't defanged. And then the last thing that I did basically was count occurrences. And this is just like doing like word count or something. Like a lot of the stuff you'll recognize as like command line kind of functions that you could run. And you could certainly like build scripts that basically do all these things too, but it's just so convenient in CyberChef. So there's some regex here. I am not a regex guru, but it does give you like some possibilities of things that you could plug in. But anyway, yes, and if you want to Google like IP address regex or whatever. People have done this for you already, so you don't have to like start from scratch. They exist. Anyway, so we have 13 IP addresses there. So you get the idea, right? This whole like flow of things. Where's my water? Okay. So now we're going to get into some good stuff. So anybody ever seen a PowerShell script that was base 64 encoded that wasn't malicious? Yeah, me either. Oh, you have?
My engineers in Germany like to back up their servers using encoded PowerShell, and it's annoying.
Yeah, tell them not to do that. I mean, it's such an easy like countermeasure thing, right? Like PowerShell plus base 64 equals no, don't do it. That's a very simplistic countermeasure, of course. But anyway, so we see this a lot with malicious activity. So in this case, it's not really a very fancy one. It's just PowerShell encoded, blah. So we're going to copy paste this into CyberChef, of course. Now let me clear all that, go over to my notes, because this is a long one. Oops, God, I hate that. It always does that. No, I don't want a dictionary. Definitely not for this content. Okay. And let's pop it in. Bless you. Okay, so we're going to do, again, a recipe that I built earlier. In this case, it is my base 64 URL defang recipe. All right, let's load that. And again, we have multiple operations happening in this example, right? So the first thing that we're going to do here is extract the base 64 bit, which, you know, I could do manually by just like deleting all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of a pain. So we're not doing that. Oops, not that one. And so you can see basically it's just gotten rid of everything that's not base 64 encoding here. And from there, we're decoding this text, so now we can see what that PowerShell command actually is, right? So essentially, it's downloading a file from what is most likely a malicious website or a compromised website, perhaps, one or the other. And then we're doing a find and replace just to pull out the actual IP. Oh, no, not there. Hold on. Find and replace. What was I doing with the find and replace here? I don't remember. Something. Anyway. And then, yes. Then we're extracting the URLs. So there's the URL that was in there. And then again, defanging the URL because that's just good cyber hygiene, right? So that's the PowerShell one. And then I have another PowerShell one. So this is a little more extensive, and these are the kind of options that I typically would see when I'm looking at like a malicious PowerShell script. The other example was kind of simplistic, but we see some things happening in here. So we've got, in addition to the base 64 encoding, you know, it says here, whoops, sorry, from base 64 string, but we also have some compression activity happening in here. So let's take a look at this one. Delete and delete. And I could be opening like new tabs like I talked about, but it's a little cleaner for demonstration purposes if I just stick with the one tab. Okay, so let's copy this. Okay. Pop it in to CyberChef, and let's load our recipe. And let's do the base 64 inflate, defang, whatever. Load that. Okay, so we've come up from all this with a nice defanged IP address, which is a C2, right, undoubtedly. So again, let's kind of take a look at the different bits. We've got the base 64 extracted there. Now we're applying the raw inflate to it. Oops, oh no, sorry. Yes. Oh yeah, so before we do the raw inflate, the base 64 looks like this, which is puzzling because you're like, I know this is base 64, but why is it coming up as gobbledygook? If it's coming up as gobbledygook, it's probably because it is compressed somehow. So let's do a raw inflate. And then we can see the whole like script here, basically, right? So we also want to now extract IP addresses, and then we defang them as well. So what was kind of a hard to process PowerShell script, you can pretty easily just dissect it using CyberChef. I mean, I'm sure you could use a Python or something like that too, but I like CyberChef, as I've mentioned. Did I say I liked CyberChef? Yes, I think I did. Anyway, actually, one of the things I think I want to start doing on my GitHub is start a repository of CyberChef recipes. I think that would be kind of cool. I'm sure other people do that too. Although I haven't found like a ton of them out there. The guy, Matt, who was the course person for that class I took, has a ton of different like examples. But he doesn't always provide like the input files. So, all this stuff for the most part were things that I just like hunted around for, like in VirusTotal or wherever. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let me go back to the deck. Okay, so here's our Exif data one that I said we'd be doing. And this is a file called dolls.jpg, and it's something that I created for a cyber competition challenge, right? So I like to take pictures of weird things so I can use them for cyber competitions, basically. So this dolls.jpg has gotten a lot of use. Anyway, so I think one of the things that I ask people is like, where was this picture taken? I also ask like, what's the model of the camera, so on and so forth. So you could absolutely check this out using Exif tool, which is also one of my favorite tools, but you can also use CyberChef for this. So let's do that. All right, so I'm going to open a file, dolls.jpg. And we can see what magic says. Render image will produce something. Let's try render image. I haven't actually done that. I think it's just going to show us the picture. That would make sense, right? Yes, a very zoomed in version of the picture. I think it's even creepier now. We're like looking up a doll's skirt. Anyway. Okay, so let's get rid of that recipe. So what we actually want to do is Exif, extract Exif. But you could also remove Exif. So I haven't tried it. We'll have to see how well it works. But extract Exif. And it's giving us, it says here, 50 tags. So lots and lots of data behind these images, right? And so, for example, this is one that I manipulated because it definitely didn't, and that's probably super hard to see. Let me make it a little bigger again. Okay. So yeah, so I manipulated this, of course, just for fun. So the image description is no code execution allowed here. The make is 3-letter agency. The model is spy camera. I'll let you guess what 3-letter agency is associated with this. None, really, but you know, you can use your imagination. And then we have GPS coordinates, which is how you would identify the location. And then all this other stuff, which I seldom care about, like the actual like photograph part of it. So yeah, so this is super, super easy to do the Exif analysis piece. Okay, so I have some time for questions. I can also take requests to try things. They may or may not work because this is all live demo, but if it starts being like live demo where I wasn't even planning it, it might get a little crazy. And I think they said this goes till noon, but I'm not sure if it's noon or... Oh, 1, yeah, okay, it already is noon, that happened. So I was planning to wrap up around 10 minutes before 4 questions, or if people want to come up and try stuff, you could do that, or if you have a computer with you and you want to try some stuff, that's cool too. Originally, when I submitted this talk, I thought about doing it as a workshop. Would you all be interested in a workshop like this, where you were doing different operations and trying things? Yeah, okay. I think I might do that at some future event. Also, did I mention Cyberjutsu Con, June 18th? Be there, be square, it's cool. So here's my info. As I said, I'm pretty much Marcelle Lee on everything. My medium is blogs mostly about cyber competitions, with occasional other things sprinkled in for good measure. And my LinkedIn, you have to have my email address to connect with me. So that's your first challenge. If you want to do some research, you are security research people, right? Or want to be. So it's not that hard to find my email address, but you would need to do that to connect with me. And then I'm on Twitter, of course, too. So questions. Ask me anything. Yes?
So anyway, to script this, everything's up in a GUI.
Yeah, no, you absolutely could do all this in a script and not use CyberChef at all. Oh.
Does CyberChef allow you to run it as a script?
Oh.
Run the recipes as scripts?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to look into that. Oh.
Actually, there's a Splunk integration. You can do it from the Splunk command line, CyberChef, whatever. So it's all Python on the back end, so there's probably scripts there.
All right, so if you didn't hear that, Splunk has a CyberChef integration. Interesting. There's actually different tools out there. I'm trying to think. There was one I was just using the other day, security tools, where they have CyberChef baked in to use. So they're pretty common. I don't know. You with a hat.
Is there a way to, you mentioned fork. I haven't used fork yet in CyberChef. Can you fork it to get multiple results off the same input?
Yes. Did I not do that one? Okay. Yeah, let's try that. All right. I don't know. Let's try apples, grapes, bananas, whatever. Okay. And let's do fork. And then what operation do we want to do? Let's say, I don't know, rot 13 or something like that. Yeah, so I'm not sure if we needed the fork in this case, but that's how it would work, basically.
Uploaded your basic 64 coded thing.
Yeah.
You said extract IP address.
Yes.
Right, because you would build that recipe and you know there's an IP address there. What if I didn't know who was extract IP address was extract URL?
Right, it could be either.
Both from that one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Do 2 different operations.
4 operations and this split it off into this.
Yes. You definitely could do that. There's a whole section on, and I would have to think about it, so I'm not going to try to do it right now, but in this other section, I think maybe, is, no, not other, where is it? Oh, utilities maybe. I don't know where it is right now, but definitely there's options of things you can do with fork and other tools. So great question. So I don't know exactly how to do it, but yes.
Any idea of the underlying file type and utility or how useful that is for malicious files that intentionally try not to advertise their file type?
So just to identify the type of file?
Yeah, there's a file type.
Oh, yeah, so you can do that. I've never actually used it in here, to be honest, because typically I just run the file command from command line, but I think that that's what this would do. So let's, in the forensic section? Okay. right. Detect file type. There we go. Let's put that here. I'm going to delete that, delete that. Let's open up dolls again. Oh, thank you. There we go. Yes, so it does do that. Very good. Thanks for the forensics tip. All right. Any other questions? I feel bad because like half the audience is leaving. I'm like, we don't have any questions. Oh, Nick, you're like behind my microphone.
Well, you answered this for me yesterday, but I figured it would be useful for everyone else.
Yeah.
When I click bake, is my input shared with GCHQ?
No, it's not. So it's all client side. Everything is done client side. So that's super cool. But especially if you're doing it locally, you're definitely golden. So like right now, I wouldn't even need to be, like you can see, I'm just running it as a file on my local host, and everything is done on this side, my computer side. So great question. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think that that is it. So give you back 5 minutes of your life, and you can go to lunch early, beat the crowds. And thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.